Good afternoon, scholars. For 2 years, I taught mathematics in Metro Atlanta, and when my students walked in and got settled down, I would greet them with the good afternoon, scholars. And for 2 years, my students would greet me back, good afternoon, Mr. LeGrand. Firstly, I want to thank Professor Shaughnessy for allowing me to come and speak to your political science class today for 5 minutes. Secondly, I want to introduce myself. My name is Ronald LeGrand, and I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I graduated Northeastern University in the class of 2011 as a finance and social entrepreneurship major, and I moved to Atlanta to participate in the 2011 core and work in the DeKalb County School District at a school called Bethune Middle School. A little bit about Bethune Middle School. Bethune Middle School was a beautiful school in the suburbs of Decatur. Had about 1,000 students, 50% women, 50% male. 98% of the population was African American. 92% of the population of students were on reduced or free lunch. Now that kind of paints a brief picture of the issues that happen in my classroom. But it doesn't speak to the heart of the experience as a core member. Raise your hand if you ever heard of Teach for America. Okay, see about 5 to 6 hands, understandable. Now I'm gonna get you guys up. Raise your hand, in fact, stand up if you have aspirations to go to a law school. This is a political science class, right? Okay, so 50 students in this class, 30 students stood up. In my head, that's 30 out of 50 or 3 out of 5, which means you guys, about 60% of you aspire to go to law school after college. What if I told you that in Georgia, if you were a black man going through the public education system, only 6 out of 15 would have that opportunity? That's less than a 50% chance to even think, to even be put in a position where you can stand up in a college classroom and say that you want to go to law school. Stand up if you've ever considered yourself a leader. Yes, lots of hands. That's what I expect. Raise your hand if you've ever been inspired. Okay? Lots of hands, lots of hands. Raise your hand if you believe that you were put on this earth for a very deep and strong reason. Our students need you. Johnny Freeman, who I had in my first year teaching, needed someone young with energy, with the ability to inspire, with the ability to create inspiration, to bring him and jump him about 60% in math gains, leading him to earn the second highest score out of all the young boys that came into the classroom. He needs you. Leave it to Johnny Lawrence, another student I had in my first year, who came into my classroom with the lowest standardized test for 6th grade and left above average, inspired and motivated to follow entrepreneurship, which happened to be an interest that I was just exposing my kids to with no expectations of them picking it up as an interest and a passion. Every single one of you has the ability to inspire. Every single one of you has the ability to create inspiration in this room and in a classroom in the trenches of Atlanta, or in a classroom in the trenches of New York City, or New Mexico, or California, or anywhere you were born. My 2-year experience was not a fairy tale. I struggled so much. My first year, I wanted my students to become mature, but I wasn't mature myself. And so with the support of Teach for America, with the support of my colleagues, with the support of my network, I was able to rebound and realize what maturity was for myself. And so I reflected over the summer and came back my second year with a vengeance. Starting, dream big, act now. Focusing on getting my students to be urgent. Focusing on getting my students to act now. And they did. So far, 65% of my students are on track to pass the CRCT. 95% of my students are invested in me, are invested in their learning. And slowly but surely, that achievement gap that lingers across socioeconomic statuses, that lingers across impoverished neighborhoods and communities, that lingers in the faces of black men and Spanish men and black women and Spanish women, is closing because of me. But my footprint is so small relative to this whole big movement. And my footprint, and your footprint, and your footprint, and your footprint makes a bigger footprint. So while I understand that everyone in this class, almost everyone in this class, wants to aspire to go to law school, I want you to think about potentially inspiring 90 others to go to law school and following your footsteps. I want you to think about the indirect impact that you can have on that student whose family still has no one that went to college, but can be that person that goes to college for the first time. I want you to think about those students. And I'm not asking you to sign up today and be a teacher. But what I do want is a conversation. I want to know what you're great at. I want to know what you're passionate about. I want to know your goals. I want to know your dreams. I want to know your aspirations. And I want you to connect it with how big that can be for students in Atlanta, Georgia, and New York, wherever you were from. Thank you.